to give you a little bit of the overview information. So you have some of the information about the study. It might answer some of your questions, but then we are happy to take questions as well. If we can kind of keep the questions, for after we get through the slides, that would be great, just so we're not jumping around too much. But we do, understand you can also, if you think of something and you want to post it in the chat, that's an option as well, just so it doesn't, I know myself, when I think of a question, sometimes I, don't want to forget it. So you want to get it out. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. We may have some other folks joining in, but I'll introduce myself. My name is Eileen Winquist, and I manage communications for our stormwater program. So we do a lot of education about preventing water pollution and also engagement on a lot of our stormwater projects, and also I helped with kind of implementation of the stormwater utility most recently. So some of you probably remember some of the communications on that. And then I'm joined by a few other staff here, but I'll turn it over to Nick to introduce himself.
Eileen, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be kicking off the first half of our presentation. My name is Nick Rogers. I'm one of Eileen's colleagues in the Department of Community Planning, Housing, and Development. I'm actually the county's, I'm a principal planner and the county's zoning amendment coordinator. And so sometimes like this, I have direct hands on the study as one of the leads. Other times I'm just supporting our other colleagues' work on different types of studies that will result in an amendment and an update to the county's zoning laws. And so as we get into our charge today, that's sort of the end result that we're working towards, and that the board has adopted. The board has directed staff to do in a charge that they I mentioned was directed earlier this year on February 25th. And so we're in the midst of that study that is focused on how much of a lot in our lower density residential areas can be covered by impervious surfaces. Even that term impervious is a technical term that we're going to work hard today to break down for you all. But any of those sort of technical terms, jargon, terminology, please feel free to post those questions in the chat, and we'll get to them as best we can today. So, why the focus on impervious surfaces? To create better outcomes for two areas: stormwater management and tree canopy. The scope of work that is encompassed within that board charge had some criteria, some subtasks that the board has directed staff to focus in on. And we'll touch base briefly on this, how in the zoning ordinance right now, there are regulations regarding lot coverage. Lot coverage is a zoning ordinance regulation that covers that addresses in part how much impervious surface can cover a given lot. Only in part. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The second subtask is focusing on plantable area, specifically minimum contiguous plantable area, providing space for trees to continue to add to our existing tree canopy. The third subtask is to think about the yard and setback requirements. Could those be, or should those be adjusted to create those outcomes regarding better outcomes for stormwater management and tree canopy? And then the final one is make sure that we're focusing on different lot sizes, different zoning districts. We have several different residential zoning districts in our lower density residential areas. And so the board wants us to be thinking thinking along those lines. This is an important slide here. This is arguably the most important slide. And so if there's only one thing that you take away from our conversation today, it's what the heck it means when we talk about impervious area. Not our, it's a paraphrase of a definition, but it's not my definition. It's not Eileen's definition. It's the definition in the county code, chapter 60, which focuses on how we manage and regulate stormwater. And so impervious surface, impervious area, very plain and straightforward. Any surface material that significantly impedes or prevents the ground from absorbing water. And so there's a spectrum there, right? Think of some of the items that we've identified here. Buildings, the building footprint itself. When water falls down, it goes on the roof, it goes into a drain, perhaps it goes into the yard. It's going somewhere, but it cannot fall through the building. Number one, streets, parking areas, your typical hardscapes, concrete, asphalt. Those are the more obvious ones. But then some of the less obvious ones, you see the graveled pathway there in the image, compacted dirt. For the purposes of regulating and defining what impervious area is in Arlington, those are surfaces that either impede or prevent the ground from absorbing water. When we briefed the board and provided them a status update this past Tuesday, we made sure to focus in on pervious paving materials. Many of our residents use them for their driveways and parking areas, walkways and such. These are alternatives to concrete and asphalt that allow more of the water to absorb through and find their way into the groundwater table below, but they impede or prevent the absorption of water into the ground. And so for our purposes, for the study, for the purposes of how the county manages stormwater, they are treated, they are considered the same as asphalt. They're considered as concrete. That's an important distinction that's come up and a question that we've received a lot in the early part of the study. So we wanted to give that subject its due today. And Eileen, you may have mentioned this already, but these slides will be posted on the LRS website. We're recording our conversation today. So I'll wrap up on the board's charge. Several recommendations, several additional things for the staff to be considering. How does this affect older versus newer homes? We, of course, need to be mindful of equitable planning practices and principles. How is this going to be administered? How is this going to be enforced? Those are topics that we're going to be focusing on in part, mostly in phase 2 and to a lesser extent in phase 3 later on in 2026. But the board has asked us to really look at this and account for things from all different angles. And I mentioned those zoning regulations regarding lot coverage previously. Within those, they talk about main building footprint requirements. And what the board has really asked us to do is rather than try to improve upon what's currently regulated in the zoning ordinance under those lot coverage requirements, we want you to focus on the totality of impervious area, all of those surfaces that prevent or impede water from being absorbed into the ground. And so that's going to be our focus for the course of the study. So why? Why are we doing this study? It really boils down to 3 main categories. I mentioned those lot coverage requirements. It's not just a zoning problem. We have some other challenges and limitations in other ways that we regulate, manage, and administer stormwater and development in our low density residential neighborhoods. So for starters, the regulations only authorize us to treat and control for the new impervious area that's added to a redevelopment, not the entirety of the lot, even though that lot may have been developed in a prior era before we had stormwater management regulations. Our current regulations only account for sort of medium to large size projects that will disturb more than 2,500 square feet of area. And I mentioned some of the limitations in those lot coverage regulations. The quotes are somewhat ironic in demonstrating that. For example, take a look at the yellow back there behind the swimming pool, the patio in the diagram we're showing here. So the area where the water would be in that swimming pool, that counts as lot coverage. But per our zoning regulations, the hardscape, the concrete, the pool decking around it does not. That does not count as lot coverage for the purposes of zoning, even though it's hard, even though water doesn't go through it, even though it's impervious area. And so there's some inconsistencies with our current regulations that this study is trying to address. We know through our planimetric data, through even more refined data that's been developed and is constantly being updated and managed for the stormwater utility, that impervious surface countywide is rising. And so you take a look at the slide and say, okay, 2.1% of change in total acreage over a course of a 12-year time frame. What's 2%? 2% is approximately 340 acres during this time frame that went from pervious, where the water could absorb and infiltrate into the ground, to impervious. And again, to contextualize what 341 acres, it's about 10 pentagons. So we are adding impervious area, and again, in our low density residential areas, and a lot of that is coming from development on lots with one family detached houses. Yes, there are other private development county projects themselves that have contributed to that addition of impervious area over time. But the majority of it is with those. Sometimes it's a tear down and rebuild that many of you have seen in your communities. Sometimes it's just addition. Sometimes there is no permitting process, and folks are adding a walkway or a patio to improve their lot layout, to really provide that great experience on their lot. But there are harms that are coming from those incremental changes, that death by 1,000 cuts over time with the impervious area. So Eileen, I've set the stage. Take us to the big picture, if you would.
Sure. Thank you, Nick. And I think we did have a question about what are the low density residential zones. So here we do have a map. And this is really kind of a zoning category. And so I think it's based on, right, the number of properties, per acre. I think it's kind of defined differently for each of these. And then also the lot sizes you can see here for R10. Those lots are 10,000 square feet. Then we have, I think, R20 are 20,000 square feet. So you can see kind of the distribution of the lower density residential areas, and this accounts for about 50% of the land in Arlington. And as Nick noted, this is where we are seeing more increases in impervious area because as homes are redeveloped, and that's where more of the change is happening. So next slide. So again, why are we focusing on lower density residential? And so that's, again, where we're seeing more of the increase. And these all areas are also really important, for our ability to better manage stormwater and expand our tree canopy because they are, just critical space. We're, for example, with our tree canopy, we're not able to meet the tree canopy goals just using, if you look at like our public spaces, and where we can plant trees, we're not really going to be able to get there, just with the public spaces. So, we need to really look at all the different areas in Arlington to improve our stormwater and meet our tree canopy goals. So next slide. So I mean, I know we do have some folks on here that are very knowledgeable about trees, but we do want to just point out that having these pervious areas are really important for trees. And I think I know for myself, I'd always heard that the critical root zone, kind of, mirrors, the tree canopy, but in actuality, it expands, the tree root zone expands, quite a bit beyond the tree canopy itself. And you can see there are typically kind of larger structural roots, more immediately under the tree. But then these absorption roots go, out way beyond, kind of just where the tree canopy is, and are, probably shallower than people might realize. So it is important to have, that space and that soil volume for the trees to be able to support the trees. And one other thing that we're going to be looking at with the study is trying to ensure, large enough contiguous areas. So it's not helpful if you have a certain amount of space, but it's kind of all chopped up, by utility lines or other things, and the tree doesn't have, a large enough area in one spot, to kind of create that soil volume, for supporting the larger trees. So, next slide. So for the study, as we've kind of talked about, we'll be trying to balance, two primary considerations. So, with a lower limit for impervious area, that can, provide benefits for stormwater, tree canopy, and then also trying to minimize drainage issues, immediately between properties. That is something I know I have met with homeowners that have had impacts, when a neighboring property has, covered a lot of their space, and there's more runoff, coming onto the adjacent property. And then again, looking at the, a higher limit, provides more flexibility for property owners, in terms of their individual uses. But then there may be, additional things that we need to do in terms of stormwater management. So we're really trying to find a kind of a nexus, I guess, where we can, achieve the goals, but again, maintain, flexibility for property owners in terms of what they want to do and being able to, and, use and enjoy their space as well. So, next slide. So just a quick outline for the time frame for the study. We've kind of outlined three phases. This first phase that we're in now is really trying to share information with the community, also letting people know that the study is getting started. So it's important. We want to have, a good participation and awareness, amongst, because obviously this is potentially, can affect a lot of property owners. So we want to make sure, people are not surprised, that they're aware, and if they want to participate and provide feedback, that they, take an opportunity to do that. And then as we get into the winter and the spring, we will be, delving into the data a little bit more, and trying to look at exactly what potential limits, we might be considering, for these impervious area limits. So looking at kind of our current lot coverage requirements, we're going to be doing benchmarking, we're going to be looking at data on properties, looking at properties now, what's their impervious cover, and what tree canopy, are they able to support, getting information, from multiple sources that will help us to identify some potential impervious area limits. And then we can move into additional engagement, in the spring and summer, looking at, here's some potential limits, here are the benefits that we see, from these limits, and get additional feedback from the community. And then moving into the fall winter, where we would be developing the text amendments and specific information that would be proposed, for the zoning ordinance. So again, that's just our general timeline there. Next slide. And then we just wanted to also give a shout, if you have not been on the LRS website yet, we will put that in the chat. But there's also a mapping viewer, and so this takes advantage of, kind of combines our impervious area layer from the stormwater utility and the county's tree canopy layers. So you can see for various properties, specific properties, you can zoom in. It also has the zoning information for the properties, so you can start to explore some of that information yourself. And we will, we are looking at, trying to expand this and see, potentially might add some other filters and other ways to view the data. But we wanted to get this initial information out there for folks to start to explore. So next slide. So I think we've. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I think we're good now, Eileen.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, just if everyone's on mute, that'd be great. So this study, we are categorizing this as an involve level. So we will have a lot of engagement opportunities, multiple opportunities kind of throughout the different phases. We'll use a lot of different outreach measures, social media. We've got e-boards. We're going to be sharing stuff in county newsletters. We're going to be doing, virtual sessions. We have a couple in-person open houses that we've scheduled, to kind of delve into some of this information in more detail and allow, some good discussion. And then we have been, most recently available at some of the fall community events. So there'll be a lot of opportunities. We do have a meeting also scheduled with the Long Range Planning Committee that has some of the commission representatives too. So that'll be another opportunity, to learn more about the study. So lots of options for everyone. So next slide. So just a couple of the events that are coming up. We will be at the Green Valley Day tomorrow and also Westover Day on October 4th. And if you want to note the dates for the open house events, we have October 20th and November 13th. So those are going to be basically kind of the same type of event. So you don't necessarily need to go to both, but if you can choose one based on your schedule, the information for those are on the LRS website. And then we do have a couple newsletters that you can subscribe to, and then we'll be sharing information throughout the study through these newsletters. So that's a good way to just stay informed, and you'll just receive information as we send that out too. So next slide. That might be the end. Okay, great. So that's what we had for our overview, and I think I've seen some questions popping up in the chat, so we will go ahead and kind of open it up. I guess we can start with chat questions, or folks can also raise your hand and unmute if you would prefer to ask your question. So I think Lauren is going to help us
Thank you,
out
Lauren.
and
Yeah, no
help
problem.
moderate a little bit. So
Yes. So Eileen and Nick, the first question that I see in the chat says, in the 3400 block of South 9th Street, the owner has put concrete over 95% of the lot. There's a small strip by the sidewalk for planting. How is that legal? Was it permitted?
I don't know, but I don't relish starting off our conversation with I don't know, but it's something that we'd have to look at specifically to really dive into the details on that site. Lauren, the question does get at a key component of the study, though, in that whether it's in chapter 60 of the county code, in the stormwater management regulations that I mentioned previously, or the zoning ordinance, there is no maximum percentage of impervious area currently that a property must, cannot exceed. And so lot coverage does not equal impervious area from a regulatory perspective. There are impervious area elements. Again, I mentioned walkways and patios, the decking around the swimming pool, for example, that are impervious area that would be allowed to exceed whatever the lot coverage percentage is for a given lot. But there technically is no cap. Does that mean that someone can just pave over their entire lot and not have it treated? Not necessarily. I'm getting in the lane of our land disturbance activity process and other activities, stormwater utilities as well. But currently, right now, there is no maximum percentage, any upper threshold of impervious area, and that's what the study is focused on developing.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah. The next question is from Terry. It says your chart upward trend from 2009 to 2021 is due to the allowance of larger building footprint. Developers and owners have been successfully chipping away at lot coverage and less setbacks. Please explain how to fix that.
Oh, hey, before you guys answer that question, I just
Sure.
wanted to highlight something I've put in the meeting chat for everyone. If there are questions about particular properties, there is one about whether or one about permits. you can see all permits that have been issued for a property by going to our Permit Arlington system. You'll need to create an account. It's free, but you can search using the property address and get a list of all permits there.
Thanks,
Okay.
Elise.
Thank you. I did just want to jump in on that a little bit. I think that is part of what the study is trying to get at, because there is sometimes this incremental type of paving, and when it is some of these sort of categories that are not counted as lot coverage, there may not be, they may be below the land disturbance permit requirement in terms of the area they're disturbing. And so, these kind of incremental additions of pavement, can be added, and that, under our current requirements, that is not illegal. So that again is one of the key points that we're trying to focus on here, is to create that overall total cap, so that we are able to kind of better get a handle on all the impervious area. So. Okay, I forget which question we were on next. I think was the
Lauren,
Terry's
what's up next?
question. Oh, the building footprint. So the upward trend
Yes.
is due to the allowance of larger building footprint. And so now I don't know, Nick, if you know offhand, kind of, in terms of, I know within the lot coverage, there is a building footprint cap. I don't know offhand, how that has changed over the years. But there has also been, obviously, kind of an upward trend in terms of the size of homes, that people want. That's not just something in Arlington. There has been just kind of an increased, or desire for larger homes as well. So that is just something that is part of kind of market trends. But
Yeah. Um, what I'll add to that very briefly, Eileen, and this goes back to Terry's question. That's why I'm keeping this slide up here for now. So to clarify what this slide is showing, this is showing countywide impervious surface over time, and so this is showing this is showing everything, roads and sidewalks and all sorts of different things, whereas this slide did not show start to break that down into the sum of it parts. This one did. So this may be the chart that Terry was mentioning in their question. And as far as and I'll focus, Terry, on the allowance of larger building footprint. And so as Eileen mentioned,
I see, sorry, Nick, I see Terry shaking her head no. She's not referring to this slide. It was the
Okay.
last one.
well,
okay. Perfect. Lauren, I mean, you're our MC, and so Terry's shaking her head. Could Terry unmute and interact with us a little bit more on this?
Hi there. How are you guys?
Hey,
Hi,
Terry.
Eileen. Hey, listen. So yeah, this slide has caught my attention. I've watched this already.
Okay.
Talked to some county board members about other parts of this study, and this slide right here, it excludes walkways, patios, and swimming pools. So therefore, this slide illustrates the actual problem, which is the building footprint. That's what this slide is. It's not about roads. It's not about sidewalks, walkways, patios, or swimming pools. This is about the building footprint. So your study is confusing me, and I've watched it. And I noticed that one of the slides is now absent from this presentation that was on the September 5th one. And that was the slide that said the study omits looking at the building footprint. Now it's gone from this presentation. So now I want to understand, looking at this slide, and clearly it says excludes blah, 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 blah. And then your previous slide, which said it's going to omit looking at building foot. I need you to make it more clear, because it's not. To me, it is the building size. There's no piece of the pictures that I'm seeing that doesn't show me that it's the building footprint.
Okay. Terry, why don't I start, and
Okay.
Eileen can layer in. And
Mhm.
so let's go back to slide 5 here. So buildings are impervious area. I hope I was clear when I said that. So
So
building so buildings are
let's
impervious area, right?
clarify the word buildings. Okay. Let's clarify that. So a house,
That's a
okay,
building.
I get that,
Mhm.
because a house is built either on a cement slab, a raised foundation on top of a basement. So the water coming off there is not going to seep under the house. But let's talk about a small building that may have been on 4 or 6 little cement footers, 1 foot cement footers. And it's a small shed, and the water is coming off of the roof. The shed's in the back of the property.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, that water can now seep underneath that shed.
This shed, impervious area.
Which shed?
The hypothetical shed that you're mentioning.
It's not, though, is it? Not really. If water can
Yes, it
seep
is.
under it, it's not
Yes.
impervious.
So for the purpose of how we define impervious area,
Mhm.
all buildings, sheds, all those sorts of accessory structures, to use a jargony term, buildings are impervious area. No matter the details on sort of the footing and the foundation and things. Yes, there are nuances in between those, but buildings are impervious area. They count. Any type of building, any building counts as impervious area.
Okay, let's go back to your slide now that showed the upward trend.
Okay.
And then
And
explain to me how this is anything other than a building footprint.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question, Terry. Could
Okay,
you
your
help break it down a
chart,
little bit
look
more?
at it, says impervious area
Yeah.
excludes walkways, patios, and swimming pools.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing from 2009 an upward trend of lot coverage, right? From
Impervious
41
area.
to 43.7%. And
Yeah.
if you've eliminated everything, walkways, patios, swimming pools,
Well,
sidewalks, the only
Yeah.
factoring left is building.
yeah, Terry, let me
Terry, this
jump
is the
in.
buildings. The buildings are in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think
No,
she's
this
not,
slide is about the building. Is this
I think
correct?
Nick, yeah, I think what she's asking is, again, kind of going back to the scope and the charge, Terry, that the board has given us. There is a building footprint included already in our zoning ordinance, and that is to be maintained. That's not something that we're going to be looking at in the study to be changing. And so that's again kind of based on the direction that we've been given. So I do want to note on this slide in particular that this is not only residential areas. This is a countywide chart. So this is including other things as well. So we can always, maybe we need to annotate the chart a little bit more there. The next slide is kind of focused in more, looking at purely residential areas. So I do understand, other folks have asked, will the study be looking more at those building footprint limits and changing those? And the board has asked us to do a study and kind of come up with an overall impervious area limit. So we will not be looking at the just the building footprints, or changing that as part
So,
of this
Eileen,
study.
in order to get the result, and we want a result,
Mhm.
because me, like Mary, like everybody who's an environmentalist, we want trees to stay on the property.
Mhm.
And we want trees to thrive on the property, right? This is like the only thing that's going to save our neighborhoods from the urban heat island effect and absorb that flood water, right? So I get that. And what I do like is that this will in some way simplify, because it won't be
Mhm.
2 sets of rules, one for impervious
Yes.
surface and one for, I like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
However, you can't do this in a holistic way without looking at the building footprint. It's virtually impossible, and they're asking you to do a tap dance around a real problem. And so here's my question. So if you go through this exercise and you find it's not going to get you where you need to be, what then? Are you going to then go back to the board and say, yeah, we can't really do it like this? Or are you going to go, okay, we'll just, drop a pin there and drop a pin there, and we'll fix the small problems and leave the larger problem untouched? So if we're going to do it, we got to do it right? Because this is a big pain in the what for everybody. It takes a lot of staff time, takes a lot of community time. And I would just like to see it done correctly and holistically so that we can get a result.
Okay. Terry, thank you so much. Thank you for hanging out with us today. I appreciate it. Let's turn things back over to Lauren so we can continue to include some of our other attendees today. Lauren, who's up next?
Yeah, I'm going to jump over to Mary. I know she's had her hand up for a while. So Mary, if you want to come off mute.
Hey there, Mary.
You're still muted, so we can't hear you if you're talking.
Sorry, I just found it.
Oh, there we go.
I'm used to Zoom. I'm not used to this. Okay, yeah. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about this. I think it's very useful, and I hope we have lots more discussions going forward. But I have some problems with the way this is being approached. It seems to be pointing fingers simply at single-family low density, rather than if you look at your particular pie chart, the county is a big contributor, and other private development is a big point of it. And so I think those need to be looked at just as seriously, and to see where it may be easier in some cases to get it from other sectors rather than from single family residential.
Okay.
My second problem is I am not in support of missing middle, but I am in support of getting more multifamily housing throughout the county. And so I think one of the issues you're going to have to look at is how does the multifamily affect impervious surface? And are you giving more allowances to the multifamily? And I'm not saying that's bad, but I don't think you can assume that multifamily is going to have less impervious surface, say, per family than a single family.
Okay.
Another one, I'm very concerned about sort of a shrug and oh well, that yeah, we have to sacrifice some trees because owners want to enjoy their property, and we got to have utilities, and it just seems like a less than enthusiastic support, looking for ways to try to find ways to keep trees. And it's similar to the stormwater fees, which give no credit for existing trees, and give credit for things like, say, a brick driveway if it's laid right, which actually isn't totally pervious. So, I just
You're
think
exactly
that,
right.
yeah. So I think there are a lot of issues that really need a much more serious discussion. Oh, another with trees. In many cases now, we're getting complaints from people whose trees have been or are going to be killed by next door development. And again, this is something that, people shrug their shoulders, but it is a real economic cost to the people. And not just say they lose their shade, but in many cases, people are having to put in sump pumps and other things to handle the water that's now coming onto their property. So I hope that a lot of issues will be brought in and considered as you go forward.
Mary, thank you so much. You are, and my guess is that we'll hear from a couple other folks today. We already have in the chat who do not feel that the board's charge and their direction to staff either goes far enough, or it's missing something, or it's not clear enough. And we hear you, and I'm listening, and I hope you haven't seen me shrug my shoulders at any one of your comments or criticisms of the charge. I hope you'll appreciate at the end of the day that we need to maintain the study within that lane that the board has given us, and continue to report to them that as part of our engagement, not just here, but in other settings as well, that members of the public who are speaking to us, who are taking time out of their day to attend our info sessions and what have you, they see holes, they see missing pieces of the board's charge, and you don't necessarily need to rely on me to pass that message along. The board has its own ways to contact them and reach them out and speak your voice. Some of which can be either through email, obviously at their meetings on Saturdays as well. Their Monday sessions as well. So we'll continue to pass along your feedback and others. At the same time, you're going to see us continuing to stay focused on the charge that's been laid before us, and ultimately making a recommendation for the board to take action on an impervious area percentage maximum. Lauren, who's our next person who'd like to speak?
Yeah, in the chat, Nora said, will any change to the lot coverage standards to include swimming pools, patios, or so on require state regulation change, or is it totally under the county board and zoning board?
Eileen, I'll take that one. As of now, Nora, we believe that we can complete the study and complete the objective and do what the board has directed staff to do within the Code of Virginia's enabling legislation. If there's some change on that we discover along the way, we'll certainly be communicating upwards and consulting with the county attorney and notifying the board of that roadblock. But as of now, we're pretty confident that the state's authority on how Arlington can zone itself gives us the latitude to complete this objective.
Thanks, Nick. And then Shelby, we'll get to you, but I'm just have one more from the chat I'll go through. I hear that the board in February gave staff a particular charge, but are there plans to more narrowly address the larger issue of residential lot coverage by new houses? That comes from Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean the direction we've been given is to create this impervious area limit, which includes everything. So that includes the house, and then also carries through kind of the building footprint that we currently have in our zoning ordinance. But because it is a total cap that would include all the other surfaces as well, driveways, patios, and other things. Again, you're kind of creating this total cap that encompasses everything. So property owners and builders, will have to decide how to allocate that space, if they do want to have, with the walkways and driveways and a patio and something like that. So those things right now, which, do not count as part of your lot coverage, some of those areas do not count the walkways and patios, they will count. So the total amount of space, will be, I guess, smaller than really what people have today, because some of those areas are really not regulated, and people are able to, kind of install those as they want. So Nick, I don't know if you want to add anything, but
no, just I mean, let me Lauren, remind me who the commenter was.
That was
Richard,
I think.
Richard, yeah. I mean, I think what I was saying about the study's charge and what it's focused on and what it excludes, as I mentioned previously, gets at a lot of Richard's concerns, and so Eileen, I agree with you that the simplification of just focusing on the totality of impervious area, as opposed to the sort of choose your own adventure a la carte that's in our zoning ordinance right now. Some things count, some things don't. Some things that are impervious area don't count as lot coverage. It's going to simplify and make things very straightforward and really focus the recommendation to the board, again, because at the end of the day, it's going to be the board who acts on this. This is not us doing it, just making a recommendation. The impervious area limit is going to focus on things that are hardscape that cover the ground, that prevent or impede water from being absorbed by the ground.
And just to, I see Jerry's question in the chat is kind of related. You do not envision regulation of house size or footprint. Rather, you would seek to control driveways, walkways, patios, and pools. So, so that is not correct. So this impervious area limit would include, again, everything. So it would include the building footprint. But again, we're not, we would be kind of carrying that over. There is, that limit on the building footprint that is in the zoning ordinance. So, but that would be a part of your overall impervious area limit. So again, anything, built on the property, surfaces, buildings, would count as part of this impervious area limit. So I just wanted to clarify that. But Lauren, I'll turn it back over to you for.
Yeah, thanks, Eileen and Nick. I think we'll jump over to Shelby if you want to come off mute.
Yes, hi. Thank you. I've also shared my question in the chat just now, but I'm hearing your point about how you're confined to look at the study through what the board has charged you with. I'm concerned, like many others, about the loss of older trees, and I'm just wondering if there's a way to be creative, like creating a percentage incentive where developers are allowed to dip below the standard percentage of impervious surface that you set, as so long as they maintain non-impervious, or sorry, impervious surface around older trees. So for example, let's say you set a pretty not conservative, but just based on the graph you're using, a percentage of like 45%.
Okay.
And then you allow them to go to 40% as so long as they keep the older trees on their property. Just trying to think of like within the lines of what you've been charged with, is that something you've considered to be creative with ways to incentivize keeping that tree canopy? Thank you.
I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Eileen.
Sure. Yeah.
We're both jumping in there.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I think, I think, thinking about incentives, is kind of a, that's a good suggestion. And, we are, as part of this, I know today we've been focusing a lot on the impervious, but we, obviously, a key part of this is, preserving space for trees. And so that's one of the components, is thinking about the plantable space, or, just, kind of having the contiguous space, for trees, existing trees, or, or new trees, and making sure that it's kind of protected on the property as well. So that is definitely a component of the study. I think, again, we can, think about sort of strategies, or, that might be something as we get a little further along in terms of how we would include that, with the zoning language, or, if there might be, potential incentives or something that would go along with that. But
only other thing I'll say, Shelby, is the basic idea, maybe not the specific idea of what you suggested, but the basic idea of can zoning regulations be written in such a way to provide to incentivize the property owner, the lot owner, the developer, in more commercial settings to do something, to do something good, something beneficial? The answer is yes. And so, like Eileen said, the specifics of what that is, that's really going to be a phase 2 conversation in the beginning part of the year. But the basic idea of what you described is certainly not off the table, and would be within the scope of what the board has directed us to do.
Thank you.
All right. The next question is from Joy, but I see you have your hand up. So if you just want to come off mute and ask those questions, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much. Help us understand how this focus on pervious surface will protect trees versus have more turf. I haven't heard anything that would encourage the developer to leave the trees that they find on the property. They could rip them all up and meet the minimum requirement for pervious surface with turf. And essentially, that's what we have now. And that's what's so distressing.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's one thing that's missing, and a couple of other folks have mentioned this, is where's the motivation for someone who wants to tear down a $600,000 house and build a $3 million house to leave the tree in place. And one idea, I loved that slide, I think you had it, Eileen, of the structure of a tree and the kind of roots it needs.
I'm going there right now. This one?
Yes, sir. That one right now. I bet most people don't know that.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough to get them to protect the drip line. We've got a sweet gum in our neighborhood with a $2.5 million house on it that I don't think they respected the drip line, and that tree will be dead in a few years. I am pretty sure. So can the permit review include require a specific review of the lot and the existing trees on it, and what would be necessary to ensure the health of existing trees?
Hey, Eileen.
Yep.
I see our urban forester, the county, and our close colleague who's intimately familiar with the study and working alongside us, Vincent Verwey from the Department of Parks and Rec. His camera's on. I think he's going to share some feedback from Mary. I just want to, as someone who's seen a tree ripped down and had my heartstrings pulled as well, and how like awful that feels, I just want to empathize at how much that sucks. And we are not sitting back and thinking that it's okay that trees can just be ripped down willy-nilly. That's not good. That doesn't serve the goals of the Forest and Natural Resources Commission, what are the FNRP rather. And so I just want to be very clear, Mary, and say I think just from a person-to-person perspective, we're in alignment that when we lose trees, that's a bad thing. So how that gets baked into the study, it's part of the charge. It's more of a phase 2 conversation, but I think Vincent, there may be some existing regulations that get at the heart of what Mary has described. And if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry,
Joy.
Yeah,
I'm
no
so,
worries.
Joy, I'm so sorry.
Mary's not the only person who wants to protect the trees in Arlington. There are lots of us.
Yeah.
Joy,
and I appreciate Mary's leadership, but there are so many people whose hearts are breaking at these at these mother trees being just ripped. And
well, I think why don't we let Vincent jump in a little bit? I know because I know during the review process, I mean, that is definitely something that they look at in terms of the plans and kind of the orientation of the proposed structures and where the trees are and anyway, but I'll let Vincent.
It's clearly not enough. It's clearly not enough, people.
I think. Yeah. Well, sometimes there are things that you can require, and then there are things that they can recommend. So there are sometimes differences there. But anyway, go ahead, Vincent.
Sure. Thank you, Joy. I put a couple of answers in the chat after you asked that question as well. I hope you can take a look at those as well. We actually had an update this year to based on state legislation to better protect mature trees on new development. And we've been implementing more stringent tree protection requirements that include the full protection of structural root zones, and then only a limited impact to critical root zones, which is a farther out circle. So that will help us better protect those mature trees, and anything above 12 inches for a large canopy tree is considered to be a mature tree. So we'll be implementing that regardless of what comes out of this study. But where I think this study can really help is when we reduce impervious area, if that's the outcome of the study. That means what's called the construction footprint is reduced as well. And we have in our regulation the power to require trees to be protected to the maximum extent practicable outside of that construction footprint. So if the outcome of this study is that we will end up getting smaller impervious areas, we will have more opportunities for mature tree conservation.
And yet it still could just be turf. So we need to, as someone else has said, be creative, whether it's incentives or penalties for taking down healthy, mature trees.
Okay, yeah, I'm saying that outside of that construction footprint, if there are mature trees there, they would have to protect those trees. And in fact, we have requirements in our guidance manual that requires the root zones of those spaces to be mulch and not turf. So hopefully you'll start seeing that in some new developments. You may not have seen that in the past.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Vincent. Okay. I think I forget where we are in the questions here, but
Lauren, we've got time for a couple more.
Yep.
Okay, great. So it looks like Brooke said, given the need for contiguous areas for being able to grow trees, are you looking at requiring utilities to be stacked? This would increase contiguous areas for trees.
That's a good question. I don't know that we have discussed that in detail yet. So I know, for all of our projects, there's just there's so many utilities underground. So even for our, stormwater projects, often it involves moving utilities and kind of reorienting things. So, but yeah, that's an interesting thought about, as we're installing utilities, thinking about kind of how they are arranged, maybe to better, kind of preserve space. I think a lot of our challenges sort of stuff that's kind of already there. But if you're thinking, kind of forward thinking as we're installing things, are there better ways to do that or to kind of be more strategic about it? So I think that's a good thought. So
yeah, utilities are definitely on our radar. We're certainly not ignoring them as part of the study.
Great. So I'll get to Jerry's question, but if people have other concerns or questions, who should they contact? Both of you, or is there? Okay, great. And I'll drop their contact information in the chat after this
Lauren.
question. Yeah, no problem. Jerry says, what are home insurers saying about trees and their age and proximity to houses? Have you gotten their perspective?
I'll take that one.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't reached out as part of this project to that particular group, but I've heard anecdotal evidence that some people are being required to do things to their trees if they're overhanging their house. But I do not think that's a universal thing. That's been a couple of different insurance companies who are not necessarily thinking about tree risk in a real way. But I also don't really know how that intersects with this particular study, but I can see how people might be concerned about impact from large mature trees on homes. But I still think that providing the right amount of space to properly protect trees and to allow for the soil to plant new trees to be healthy will reduce the risk from those large mature trees causing impact on private homes.
Thanks, Vincent.
Thank you.
The next question, are you also looking at easements and how they may affect neighbors differently? In other words, impervious areas counting against owners who have no effective use?
I don't have a good answer to that question, a definitive answer to that question right now, Eileen. My expectation is probably not, given that the nature of private easements between different parties is really it really needs to be addressed between the two parties. The big exception would be some sort of public easement for county utilities.
Yeah, I think that might be what they're thinking about.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good. Yeah, no, that's a good thought. I mean, we are, thinking about in terms of the lot usage, you know, obviously people have utilities and things. So, you know, we are definitely, that's something that we want to be looking at in terms of, you know, where we might establish limits. So because it's not just about like space for trees and then space for buildings and you know, walkways and things. There's other, you know, functional things that you need to have space for on the lot, such as also stormwater facilities, you know, for some of the newer homes and underground utilities. And so those, you know, need some space, and then that space is not available necessarily for trees. So I think that's you know, that's a good thought is in terms of easements, you know, so people aren't too limited, you know, if they have, and some properties do have, you know, more easements on than others. So
yeah, that's helpful. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Looks like those were all the questions that we got in the chat. So thank you both for answering. Is there a better point of contact on the board that people could reach out to? That's a question we just got.
Okay.
Or should they go to you?
I mean, I think the county board, you know, I think isn't there a general email contact for the county board office? I think that's probably a good place, you know, if you have a question or you want to.
I think it's countyboard@arlingtonva.us.
Yep.
Okay. I will drop that in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, looks like we got to all the questions. Thank you.
And the county board has basically open space at their meetings. Could you share their schedule for that? Is it a regular schedule or is it just episodic? Could someone know that?
You mean the open door Mondays?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is
and
that
we are.
every Monday?
It looks like, yeah, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in here. So
Yeah.
I think they have virtual ones and then they have in-person ones. So they're kind of choices, but it does look like they are every Monday. So the first 3 are virtual and then the 4th one is in person. So yeah, we put that in there so you can join in on those and share your thoughts as well. And we are hoping to have, you know, we're going to invite the county board members for our open houses that we have coming up. So that's another opportunity that we're hoping that they will be able to participate as well. So, or at least some of the members. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Great. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time.